an overbearing mother, a damsel in distress, a hero surrounded by death, and more death. It's Braindead alive.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
Quite the coming-of-age story about a boy becoming a man.
Very true, Alex. This is a coming-of-age tale. A Bildungsroman is what it's called in Germany.
Oh, of course. We all know that.
And New Zealand, probably. Bildungsroman.
Scrotum?
Yeah. We definitely got hanging parts in this one. We'll say that, Alex.
Oh, my goodness. Aren't they?
Welcome back to the Monsters vs. Men podcast, the bargain basement of the Monster Podcasting Airways, where two friends try to stay alive by chatting about weekly monster movies. This week, we are discussing Braindead / Dead Alive. With me is the not-so-overbearing father, Alex.
Joined by the overhanging mother, Eric.
Wow.
Big overhang.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a fetish, it's in this movie.
This movie is something.
Yeah.
When it comes to that. Yeah.
It's got everything in
Interesting. It's got a little bit of everything. So. Peter Jackson is something. We'll give him that.
Yeah, he's a super freak.
Let's go ahead and jump on in, Alex, before we devolve any further. All right.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson may be known for his action epics, among other things. But before Lord of the Rings and King Kong, which we previously reviewed on this show, he directed a little film called Braindead, or Dead Alive, as it's mostly known in the United States. I would describe Braindead as a gross out, over-the-top zombie comedy film from the 90s, but set in the 1950s New Zealand. Mm-hmm. But does that over-the-top gross out make you want to peace out, Alex?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, it's definitely over the top, but I can't say that the gross out makes me want to peace out. I think most of that is probably contributed to how unique the film is. Honestly, when I saw that this was a 90s film, I was shocked because this had 80s all over it. Like, this is definitely a holdover from the 80s era, but not in a bad way. And I think that the film is so special that it deserves a place cemented in classic zombie films. And that's not to say that I think this film's a masterpiece, because I don't. There are some misses here, but man, I do think that this thing is such an effects feast and so wholly unique that I think any zombie fan needs to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, so to preface this discussion a little bit, Braindead is a film that in high school I learned about from a friend who learned about it from his older brother, right?
Of course.
We have to watch this thing. It was one of those cult classic movies that I knew my parents would not approve of, but I thought it was pretty edgy. Yeah, I thought it was pretty edgy because I hadn't seen anything else like it. And it still feels that way in a lot of ways. But now I'm the parent, and I wouldn't want any of my kids near this film for a number of reasons. With that said, though, I really did enjoy the comedy of this film in my teenage years. The last time I watched it, being a teenager, probably half my life ago, I mean, you got some real standouts here. You've got an amazing karate priest, absolutely stunning zombie designs, and really pretty hokey comedy that was so over the top. I knew not to take this film too seriously. Unfortunately, I think it worked as well for me in 2023 as it did when I was a teenager. I still think you're right. You said it's unique. It's definitely unique. But I also think it's pretty influential for some zombie comedy features that we'll see a little bit later on in our series potentially.
Oh, interesting. I wonder about that. Because I have no doubt that there's influence from this film and future zombie stuff, but I am not sure what films it would be. So I kind of want to hear from you what you're thinking. I'm surprised that there is not more that is so obviously, for me, influenced by this film. I had to, when I mentioned, this is a shockingly like a 90s film, like when I expected it to be an 80s, and I was looking through, I saw like where Evil Dead was. I know Evil Dead started out more horror focused, but I was surprised to see that this film was so much later than that series. But like Evil Dead, this has all the trappings for a cult classic. And it is such, like you've mentioned. I could see maybe things like the zany tone bleeding into something like Shaun of the Dead, maybe. Mm-hmm. But then there's the outlandish, WTF moments, the thickest of camp in this film, mm-hmm. and the really, really fun gore. So much fun gore. Mm-hmm. I think the gore overall is actually really great. It just executed so amazingly. I can't believe the effects in this, except for one moment particularly. The pus and the custard.
Oh my gosh,
dude! I can watch Dismemberments all day, but that was just too much. Like, I am not squeamish, but that moment gets to me like very few do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's oh God. It made my skin crawl. It's so gross.
Yeah.
And then the other thing here is that outlandish tone. It is a lot of fun when we're like, you get the guy that gets pulled out and he's missing his entire legs, but his legs are bones and they're still moving. Oh, yeah. Like, I think these moments are actually really well done. Or like when the baby crawls out of the girl, like he just like splits her head open. I think it's done really well. Now there's other elements with the comedy that I don't think as well, but I will say the highlight for me, probably Eric, in this film is when he goes out with the baby. when they go out into the town, go out on the town. Dude, I was rolling. Like, it's so absurd. It's so funny in those moments. Like, that's one of the moments in the film where the over the top comedy just hit so perfectly every time something happened. Yeah. I loved it. I love that part. But what about you, Eric? Like, what are you thinking about this film?
No, well, so to answer your question, I think this film is comedy-wise, and just thinking about the tone, it's influenced by Dawn of the Dead from our zombie series. And just thinking about our zombies, because in Dawn of the Dead, you start to see a type of zombie that is like kind of so out of it at times that you can kind of get away with doing some outlandish things and probably be okay, which we see Lionel do here in this one. And then I think of future films like Shaun of the Dead, like Zombieland, who, while maybe they don't have exactly the same tone, this film lays a foundation for creating a pretty much straight up comedy film with zombies in it, right? So that's where I see its influence coming in. But one of the things that I really appreciate about this one are its main characters, Lionel and Paquita. There's a simplicity to them that's sweet, even as the heat cranks up around them and the situation just becomes more and more outlandish. There's no apology for that simplicity either. They're just rather basic, but it works with the tone and the overall vibe of this film. As I said, though, there are parts that don't work for me, as much as they did when I was a teenager, at least. The over-the-top humor it just becomes too much at times,
Mhm.
which is it's saying something because the whole film is over the top. But some aspects with the baby, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like reflecting back on, like, why are you taking this thing for a walk in the first place?
It's so dumb.
The other issue, I think this is actually the bigger issue for me, is just the stakes. Are you still laughing about the baby? He's punching the baby.
He's pretending to treat it like the other person's baby, like he's watching her. And then I love it when he leans forward, and then there's that shot through the barbed wire. It's so good.
Oh my gosh, It is good. It is. The issue I have are the stakes. And maybe I'm biased because I've seen this film several times before, and I know nothing will happen to our sweet Lionel or Prekita, the only two characters in this film that we should really care about, because I know what's going to happen to them, that is going to be okay, that is going to be happy ever after. There's just no real tension. And so then it just becomes that spectacle for the outlandish and the squeamish, which is okay for a gross out zombie film, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. But a lot of what you said really hits on what my gripes are.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I'm really down for the story. And I really enjoy the idea of this film. Being about Lionel just finally becoming a man, even though he's been an adult for quite some time now. But I'm actually with you a bit here. While I do like the baby scene, and it's probably one of the most ridiculous scenes in the film, the outlandish humor is actually too much at times. There's moments with Lionel and the zombies that just grate on me because it seems to ignore most of the logic of its own film. Like they're just they become domesticated, which is kind of the point, but it's also it goes on for too long. And I'm rapidly losing interest in Lionel juggling these zombies. I'm wondering how stupid he is. I mean, he's like you said, these are simple people.
Yeah.
But Lionel is like the biggest idiot ever, but it's kind of frustratingly so for me, actually. And so I think it just manages to be too goofy for its own good at times, and it just doesn't hit a lot of those moments for me when Lionel's with the zombies. I think the only one that really hits for me is his grandma at first. And then maybe also, and then definitely the baby, like in the outdoor scene.
His mom at first.
Yeah, what did I say?
Grandma.
Oh,
she becomes a grandma. She looks like a grandma.
She does look like a grandma. But those are really the kid is the only one that really hits for me pretty well. But I gotta say, none of the moments that do not work for me are in the epic 30-minute finale.
Yeah.
I think that it is executed almost flawlessly. It is so fun and just insane. Yeah. I just absolutely love it.
Oh, yeah.
But the moments before this are just too much for the most part.
Yeah.
And honestly, I like I said, I just don't think I like Lionel. Like, he just annoys me a lot.
I think like that's kind of the point, right? Like he is simple. I think the parts where I'm annoyed are it's like how it is kind of like how ridiculous are you gonna be, right? Like it just becomes too much. Like why are you trying to take care of these 5 zombies, right? Like it just doesn't. It defies logic, you know.
Yeah, it's just so weird. Some of
the situations he gets himself in, it just defies logic to an extent that you're like, this is far too much, right?
Yeah,
but yeah, the zombies in the basement stuff just becomes a little much. I don't think it adds much, but Yeah, I've got to say, I wanted to go back to one thing, Alex. Of all the effects, all the incredible like special effects and gross out zombie stuff, the grossest is the custard. It's just,
Oh god,
it is the
dude.
worst part of this film. It was for me when I watched this as a teenager. It still was for me this time around. It's just absolutely disgusting.
Oh god, just thinking about it, it's like, oh.
And I did tell one of my students today about that guy who has his flesh of his legs ripped off and only his leg bones remain.
Yeah?
It's just awesome. I love that. And then,
It's so good.
of course, the lawnmower scene is a highlight that will forever, for me, be a zombie film classic. It's just pure crazy idea put on film. Like Peter Jackson and friends and probably zombie film fans of the time are like, what would be great against a horde of zombies? How about a lawnmower, right? You could just mow everybody down.
Yeah,
Enough. That's
literally.
what they do, right? Which is awesome. Of course, you've got stop motion Skull Island monkey at the beginning of this film. There are a ton of moments really that I love or at least feel nostalgic about. But yeah, there are some weaknesses that take it down a notch for me this time. Though I still overall had a pretty good time with this one.
Yeah, I remember you in college really advocating for this movie and getting me to watch it. And so I remember really liking it back then as well.
MVM Plus today, we spend most of MVM Plus talking about we talk about Last of Us for the majority of the time because I finally finished the show. And so we could talk about the story and, of course, talk about the ending. And so we get all into that at patreon.com/MVM pod, where we also talk about our new podcasting platform, recording platform, Alex. Oh,
that's right.
We get into that a little bit too, right at the beginning. That's patreon.com/MVM pod. But let's go ahead and move into our awards. Compelling character, Alex, who do you have?
Mum. I got to give it to Mum. She gets a subplot here that is out of left field, really.
It is.
It's so not needed, and there it is, and it's surprising when it happens.
It's really not needed at all, right?
No, it's
you
not.
You could be an overbearing mother, being a murderer,
without drowning two people in front of your son.
So over the top. But once again, this movie.
She just like it's just like, oh, come on, like what's going on here? But yeah, I gotta give it to her. Like, you know, she did what she needed to do. She's just a woman who takes care of business.
That's right. My compelling character, Alex, is Paquita, who I think does come across as rather simple. She, of course, falls in love with Lionel because he shows up, right? And there's a cross in the as a symbol that
so funny.
Just obviously points to him being this man of her destiny. But what's revealed about Paquita is that she is a real person and she is a caring person when Lionel is struggling. And ultimately, she can hold her own at the end of this film. So I do like Paquita. She is a compelling character to me.
Yeah, Paquita, she was good. She was good. I liked her, but I kind of want to go back to Mum real quick.
All right.
What's so compelling is she managed to drown two people at the same time.
Yeah, I have no idea.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Like, talented woman.
Very strong too, apparently. Drowning is just interesting. Anyway.
and then her final form is just oof.
You liked it.
A lot to think about.
A
lot to think about there.
Most memorable line award, Alex. What'd you have?
Zingaya. That opening moment where they kill the guy who gets the monkey. I just love that they see these little scratches all over him, and they just keep saying Zingaya and just slowly dismember this man.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's so funny.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. What about you?
Mine is for divine intervention from our priest in the graveyard. Classic line right there. What a karate kicking Catholic priest.
Yeah. I wonder, Eric, in that moment, the karate priest, was it too much for you this time around, or did you still like it?
I liked it. It was a lot. It was a lot as a whole.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. Honestly, most of the stuff that graded on me is the same things that graded on you, which were when our plots seem to kind of stand still and we seem to be getting into this mess of too many zombies being taken care of for no real reason.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that part, it wasn't like, it was funny, but a little too over the top probably this time around as a whole. What about your Can't Believe That Acting Award?
My Can't Believe That Acting Award went to Stuart Devaney as Father Magruder, who said that this calls for divine intervention. I thought he did a really good job hamming it up as Father Magruder when he was taking care of zombie business. Yeah. So I'm going to give him a little shout out. I think he has the appropriate goofy chops here. I believed him in the movie, like, even though it's completely absurd and ridiculous and his hair is like way too white.
Well, it's almost it's a shout out to like classic kung fu master white hair, right?
Yes, exactly. It's he has a Bruce Lee haircut, but it's all white. But I just enjoyed his performance. I do think that scene, actually, I really enjoy it, but then I think it ends too goofily. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
I mean, does that even make
I don't
any
like
sense?
it. I don't like the head falling on him. That may be, you may be right. If I had to point my finger on it, you're like, that's kind of lame. And then
the head falls on him, and then he just does a kick and he flies on.
That's a little much. Him. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you just needed to end the scene, and you didn't know how. It's kind of how it feels.
I get that.
What about your acting award?
I can't believe that acting award goes to Timothy Baum, who plays Lionel. He plays a simple character very well, and also comes around at the end to being that hero, right? He becomes that hero, that warrior.
Mm-hmm.
He also, whenever he needs to at the end, really good job at portraying a sense of urgency as they're getting away from mom and climbing up to the roof. That part stood out to me. I was like, man, they're really going for it here. He never feels like he's phoning it in. He's fully committed. He's fully committed in every scene that he's in. So I've got to give it to him.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even though I get irritated with that character, I think he does a great job.
What about, that's a good shot.
Yeah, so I mentioned this one earlier, but mine is the shot through the barbed wire from the baby's perspective. Where he is peering out at Lionel. It's just so absurd. It's
baby point of view shot.
I just love that when you see that barbed wire, you realize that like the baby wasn't the one like biting at him. It was him putting his hand in there and just tapping his hand against the barbed wire.
Oh, that's good. That is good. I really like this shot at the beginning. Towards the beginning of the film, Lionel's mowing the grass, and the camera is placed in a way where the lawnmower goes right over top of the camera, which is just a nice little foreshadowing into the climax of this movie, which you probably don't think about as you're watching it. You're just like, oh, that's a cool shot. But then it turns around to not just be a cool shot, but a foreshadowing. So I really like that first lawnmower shot.
It's it's awesome, dude. It's a nice surprise in the film.
All right, man. Unique awards. Favorite zombie design. There are some. I just like this unique award for these zombie movies. Really like Light Bulb Zombie at the end. Is a good one.
That's a good one.
She's pretty amazing with her illuminated head.
Dude, that's a good one. I would say my favorite of the zombies is the what was his name? Uncle Les's zombie with the spine ripped out.
That's cool.
Dude,
that's cool.
It was so cool.
Oh yeah, it could just be the guts. And the guts are another.
Oh yeah, the guts. That also goes on for too long. It probably does. But I do like the guts. It's kind of funny. As for me, Eric, I had the Happy Together award, and that goes to Lionel and the baby zombie having fun in the park together. I've never seen more wholesome content.
That's awesome. All right, man. Thoughts and tiered rating for this film. What you got?
Yeah, so I think this is a really special movie. I will say, Eric, though, I actually agree with you. I did not like it as much this time around as I did the first time I watched it when you recommended it to me. That being said, though, I still found a ton to appreciate here, from the effects to some of the humor to just the overall story of it. I think it's actually a lot of fun, and I could definitely recommend this to zombie fans, at least those with certain comedic tastes. Those who like serious zombie movies are going to hate this thing. But I think this is a really fun movie. Maybe a precursor to, maybe like you were saying, some later zombie comedies. But I think this is actually a special movie, but I'm going to give it a Gamera tier. Maybe a high Gamera tier, mid to high Gamera tier, but definitely one I would recommend to most genre fans.
Indeed. I'm right with you.
What about you?
I think this is a Gamera tier film, and one that, if you feel like you enjoy a gross out film, and I'll tell you, it's not the same type of, it's not torture. This isn't a torture film by any stretch of the imagination. If you haven't seen this isn't like,
no,
you're not getting realistic gore here. It's over the top comedy gore that is meant to gross you out a little bit, but it does not feel realistic in any real sense at any point, at least to me. Would you agree? Yeah,
I would agree.
It's not trying to aim for any sort of realism here. That's for sure. But yeah, I do think there is a fun simplicity to the plot, but I think the stakes could be raised at times. And not raised in a way that just feels like more over the top, like not raised in a way that like we have to make our mom a murderer as well. But just raising the tension for our main characters and making us doubt a little bit that it'll turn out well for them in the end. Because I don't think we really doubt that. And maybe that is because of the simplistic nature of them, right? And the innocence that they bring. That the film's not going to do anything to these innocent characters. But even when Lionel is kind of sucked in back into the womb of his mother monster at the film's end, you're not worried that anything's going to happen to him, right? It's going to be okay. But with that said, the comedy works for me still, even if there are a few parts that seem to drag a little bit and the comedy doesn't just quite stick. So yeah, this is a Gamera tier film for me. I'm not sure where I put it yet on that Gamera scale, but it's definitely somewhere in the Gamera tier. All right, Eric.
I was wondering how you would feel after all this time, because I figured you hadn't probably seen it.
I have not seen it in a long time, Alex. 17 years probably.
Ooh,
yeah, it's crazy.
Golly.
Crazy. Next week we move into the 2000s and we get into 28 Days Later. Will it cater to our taste, Alex, or will we become a hater?
Man, a Danny Boyle movie. I love me a Danny Boyle movie. I do. Sunshine, especially.
I haven't seen Sunshine. I don't think.
$1 Million.
I've seen Slumdog.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. That was a pretty good little effort. But 28 Days Later, Sunshine, very good. His later stuff, it's okay.
You got any rhyme?
I forgot we were doing. I forgot we actually knew our movie.
I already did my rhyme. You must not have even caught it.
It was so smooth, Eric, that it didn't even pick up on my radar. But so I guess we got 28 Days Later. After we watch it, will we say, "See you later, Gator"? Or will we have to dive into 28 weeks and see if that movie is for the meek?
Dang.
I don't know. Whatever. We're not going to do 28 weeks.
Not. But as always, thank you for listening to Monsters vs. Men. You can leave us feedback on this episode at mvmpod.com or email us at mvmpod@gmail.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram at mvm_pod. You can also become a bargain basemite at patreon.com/mvmpod. Receive that special bonus content that we give you every single week, including host chats, interviews, and reviews. And if you can't join it this time, go ahead, give us a review on iTunes or your podcasting platform. That does help. Monsters vs. Men is produced by Alex Cornett. Executive producers are Kevin Alexander, Faye Basier, John Freeman, and Michael Herndon. Special thanks to our wives, Rock Band for PlayStation 3, which forms Cell Block B, Louis Loops, Senior Honda, Drew the Collector, our Instagram connector, and you, the listener, for listening. Until next time, don't
forget that your mom drowned your dad right in front of you.
And try to stay
alive.
Mafia, wake up, wake up.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
Final form is just, oof.
You liked it.
A lot to think about there. A lot to think about there.